where we have a great second half of the day planned. We're very fortunate to have Matthew Leffler with us to talk about International Road Check. That is the presentation that you're watching now. Matthew is an attorney. He has ran a maintenance firm, worked in technology, and is really an expert around transportation and repair. So very fortunate to have him. He is in the studio today with us. So I am going to go off camera briefly. He will replace me. You'll be pleasantly surprised because he's much better looking than I am. Stick around and we will be right back.
Oh, we're back. We've invaded the studio of Diesel Laptops. Hi, my name is Matthew Leffler, and today we're going to talk about International Road Check. I'm so excited for you as you learn about this important part of our supply chain and what happens when you have commercial vehicles being inspected in a 72-hour blitz. Let's get to it now. International Road Check. My name is Matthew Leffler. Let's begin talking about who I am. So I'm the founder and managing partner of Armchair Attorney, a law firm specializing in maintenance, repair, and post-employment restrictive covenants. I earned my JD from Michigan State University College of Law and my undergrad from University of Illinois. I'm licensed to practice in the state of Illinois, the Northern District of Illinois, and the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. Let's get into what we're talking about today. The learning objectives for this conversation is about understanding the purpose of the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance. We hope you can identify key components of International Road Check and understand the significance of ABS and cargo securement. Ultimately, we want you to be able to discuss the results of International Road Check, understand what this is all about, and then, hopefully, prepare strategies to avoid nuclear verdicts, which are when judgments against a company over $10 million. This is important. Every single thing that you have on the shelf, at your doorstep, or in your house came on a truck. And in 50 states, for high school educated men, driving a truck is the most common job out there. And yet, it remains one of the most dangerous professions in the United States. We're going to talk about that as we look to understand International Road Check. Now, before we get to that, here's what it's all about. I want to thank you for attending, for listening and learning and being excited about International Road Check and the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance. In this presentation, we will explore the purpose, significance, and the impact of International Road Check on ensuring the safety of commercial vehicles on our roads. You have to understand that there is not many jobs more difficult than safely delivering freight on time and undamaged. And that requires good preventative maintenance and significant amount of inspections. So, what is the CVSA? Well, that is the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance, a nonprofit organization comprised of local, state, and provincial, territorial, and federal commercial motor vehicle safety officials and industry representatives. The Alliance aims to prevent commercial motor vehicle crashes, injuries, and fatalities, and believes that collaboration between the government and the industry improves road safety and ultimately saves lives. And that's what it's all about. Safely delivering freight is not easy, and making sure you have the technologies and the processes and the people to make sure that your fleet is operating correctly. You're going to see some really interesting data as we get down this presentation. You're going to learn a lot about what we see in the industry over this big old blitz. So let's talk about International Road Check. International Road Check is an annual 3-day enforcement and safety campaign organized by the CVSA, an international association dedicated to promoting commercial motor vehicle safety. The event brings together law enforcement agencies across North America to conduct comprehensive inspections of commercial vehicles and their drivers. Now, the focus of this presentation will be what the main elements are they're looking for during International Road Check, and it's taking place right now, May 16th, 17th, and 18th. About every minute, 10 to 15 commercial vehicles are inspected. And during that inspection process, they're looking at all sorts of things, and we're going to dive into each of those main categories from both the drivers as well as the motor vehicles themselves. Again, this is about education. No one's trying to make it more difficult, I should say, to operate a commercial fleet. It is always difficult. It has never been easy. But as time has gone on, we still need to have better safety and maintenance practices. So the purpose of International Road Check is to bring light to what is happening out there every single day. Because when things are moving, that's an 80,000-pound machine. And you want to make sure it brakes correctly, it has all the proper lights working, and this is what International Road Check is all about. Now, look, the purpose of International Road Check is to enhance the safety and security of commercial vehicles, their drivers, and the general public. By conducting thorough inspections and enforcing compliance and safety regulations, the CVSA aims to reduce the number of crashes, injuries, and fatalities involving commercial vehicles. Now, you have to understand, this environment that we operate in today is the environment of distraction. Every single person has a supercomputer sitting in their pocket, or maybe on their dash, or maybe in their hand. And so we have to be cognizant that even if we take all the proper practices to make sure our motor vehicles are safe, we still have a motoring public to be aware of. And this awareness is so important for so many people. So let's get into talking about the inspections. Now, approximately 4 million inspections take place every single year in North America to ensure that large trucks and buses driving on our roadways are operating safely, with specially trained inspectors in each state, jurisdiction, territory, and province, all across North America, to get the criteria by the CVSA, known as the North American Standard Inspection Program. Now look, this is what's so critical for you to understand. In the United States, we have a rule on vehicle inspections. The Federal Annual Motor Carrier Safety Administration is what administers these things. You have to have a qualified technician inspect the vehicle once a year. That is the minimum standard that you have to do. However, your vehicles are expected, they are expected to always meet the thresholds set out by the FMCSA. And what you're going to find out as we go through this program, it's not nearly as good as you'd hope. We like to think that motor vehicles are kind of maintained like aircraft, with comprehensive inspections happening all the time and people always staying on top of their preventative maintenance schedules. That's not how it works. That's not how this business is conducted generally. In fact, about 1 in 5 commercial vehicles that are inspected during this big International Road Check fail for not meeting the minimum safety thresholds required by the FMCSA. So it's important for everyone to understand that this is not just a process of inspection. This is about the safety of you and me and your families and my family. Because when we leave our homes, we expect to come home in the same condition that we left. We want that for ourselves, we want that for our drivers, and we want that for everyone else in the motoring public. This is why International Road Check is called Blitz Week. They blitz, they inspect. Like I said, 10 to 15 commercial vehicles inspected per minute. It's really quite interesting. So what are the vehicle inspections looking for? The trained inspectors are performing comprehensive inspections on commercial vehicles, focusing on critical components such as brakes, lights, tires, and steering systems. I like to call them the BLTs, brakes, lights, and tires. Delicious and easy to remember. Now, brakes are important because that's what makes the vehicle stop, which you probably want. Lights are good because if you can't see anything in the middle of the night, that's kind of dangerous. And tires, yeah, tires, the thing that make the vehicle go. You want to make sure all of these things are periodically inspected. Now, beyond the FMCSA and beyond the CVSA, every single day, truck drivers are making driver vehicle inspection reports. They're looking at these things every day. So if we all understand that vehicles are being inspected every single day, and we have requirements by the federal government of what is necessary and safe, why is it that it's always so surprising that fleets are parking their assets during this time of year? You'll know, for some people in the freight brokering world, sometimes the rates go up during this period of time. And the reason they go up during this period of time is that motor carriers are parking their assets. They make the decision, wouldn't it be nice if we could just park our stuff and not have to deal with the international road check? That's what happens sometimes. So we do often see a little spike, a little bump in the freight rates because companies are taking their equipment out of the capacity. And when you lose some capacity, you increase the rates that freight is being moved at. Not the thing you really hope to hear, that people are taking their vehicles and instead not bringing them out. But it does happen. Now, the driver examinations, this is the next part of it. This is part 2 of what we look at for International Road Check. The driver examinations, inspectors assess the drivers for compliance with hours of service regulations, proper licensing, medical qualifications, and adherence to other safety requirements. Drivers who fail to meet these standards may be taken off the road to prevent potential accidents caused by fatigue or other risk factors. Many in this industry know about the ELD mandate, the electronic logging devices. This is one of the ways that organizations who are looking at safety try to mitigate the risk. If you have an hours of service violation, the machine can tell you that. Sometimes the machines malfunction, sometimes other challenges you run into, but this is the goal. When you're operating a truck over the road, you have a window. That window is 14 hours. And in that 14 hours, you can drive for 11 hours. And there's other regulations you have to kind of keep on top of, and ELDs are a major part of that. But it should be interesting to note that over 133,000 inspections conducted overall every year in terms of this International Road Check and other CVSA inspections don't even have valid federal inspections on file. So you have motor carriers operating without even having the yearly inspection. So again, we really need to dial in and say, why does this matter? If you aren't maintaining your equipment, if you're not training your drivers, you are putting liability in front of your company. And we'll talk about this later on in this program about nuclear verdicts and what people like me, lawyers, are looking for to try to make sure everybody is being held accountable for the things that happen. Now look, this is about public outreach and education. So the 3 components of International Road Check are vehicle inspections, driver inspections, and public outreach and education. Now, International Road Check serves as an opportunity for the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance to educate the public about the importance of commercial vehicle safety. Through various awareness campaigns, they aim to foster a culture of safety and encourage all stakeholders to prioritize compliance with regulations. You'll see in this image a guy working on a light getting knocked out by a box truck. Look, when you have big accidents or dangerous situations, it's about money at the end of the day and the liability that you face because you either took corners or find ways to not really do what you're required to do. Remember, as a motor carrier, your vehicles must always be meeting the FMCSA qualifications. You have to have all of these things compliant at all times. It just happens to be the case that sometimes people don't. They just don't get inspected and they're able to keep running. When you're a freight broker in this business, you're looking for inspections from motor carriers to see if they are in fact operating the way that you expect them to operate. the end of the day, we all want things affordable. But if you cut safety or you cut maintenance, the outcome is not something that anybody wants to see. And what results is injuries, fatalities, and, as we mentioned, nuclear verdicts. So let's talk about the significance of International Road Check. Again, 72 hours, thousands and thousands of inspections conducted. Maybe 40, maybe 60, maybe 80,000 inspections get conducted during this period of time. And yet, it's still something very few people in this business know about. The significance here is the impact of International Road Check extends beyond the 3-day event itself. It's not just about the 3 days. This is the thing about continuous improvement and highlighting exactly why we care so much. By conducting these intensive inspections and raising awareness, the CVSA promotes ongoing safety throughout the year. If you don't know what it's like to operate a commercial vehicle, that's okay. But we want you to understand what that means. There are massive blind spots in this industry, just like there are blind spots on a truck and a trailer. We want you to understand that when we're operating these vehicles, you got to give us space. You got to understand that maintenance is something you can't defer. Sometimes you do, but you ought not to. And we want this to be a dialogue where we can talk about this as an industry, because even though we may all be competing for freight or competing for work that we do in a shop, we want to make sure we all get home in the same condition that we left. And we talked about this. Driving a commercial vehicle is one of the most common jobs in this country. And it remains one of the top 10 most dangerous jobs in all of America. And it has a direct correlation with what we're talking about here. The Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance is here to help make a safer freight experience with every stakeholder, regulators, motor carriers, suppliers and shippers, diagnostic and repair companies. This is what it's all about. We have to collaborate. Collaboration is the way you overcome these silos where people are finding vehicles not being maintained properly. So this is the significance of International Road Check. It is to remind you, to remind me, that we have to focus on safety first and safety always. It is not delivering freight on time and undamaged. It is about safely delivering freight on time and undamaged. But this is why we focus so much on International Road Check. Let's talk about the emphasis. So every year, the FMCSA says, hey, let's focus on something to do with different components. And the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance goes right along with them. This is about the two big focuses this year are ABS as well as cargo securement. Let's talk about ABS. Now, this year's inspections will focus on anti-lock braking systems and cargo securement to highlight the importance of these aspects of vehicle safety. Although ABS violations are not out of service violations, meaning the vehicle can still move on, you're not knocked out and having to wait for a repair technician, ABS play a critical role in reducing the risk of collisions by preventing the wheels from locking up or skidding, allowing a driver to maintain control of the vehicle while braking. Remember, this is all about the BLTs, brakes, lights, tires, but we invest in technology to augment and improve the way that we move our freight. ABS is one of those things. And so looking at ABS diagnostic-wise is understanding, do the systems work the way they were intended to? And this focus helps all of us in the industry, repair technicians to shop managers to fleet managers, where to focus the attention. What should your people know how to do? And if diagnosing ABS issues is not your skill set, it's a great opportunity to train people to be ready for this, and a way for you to talk to your customers if you're a maintenance provider and say, we understand this. We know the focus is coming. Schedule your service today and we'll get a look at it. We'll make sure you're ready to go. The same is kind of true with cargo securement. So the emphasis on cargo securement, in addition to the improper cargo securement, poses a serious risk to drivers and other motorists by adversely affecting the vehicle's maneuverability, or worse, causing unsecured loads to fall, resulting in traffic hazards and vehicle collisions. And you see here, you got a nice vehicle with some strapping down this TIE fighter. It's important to know if things are secured. When you're driving on the highway, we don't want you to go, oh, it's like Final Destination. The things are falling everywhere. No, no. We need drivers to be trained in how to properly secure their freight. So the focus right now is how do you make sure that things are properly secured? Now, it's not going to impact as much with things like dry vans with, truckloads of merchandise. It's probably more like flatbeds moving equipment or freight. But it's still something we want to be aware of because all it takes is for one thing to fall off that vehicle and have a catastrophic event. And these catastrophic events are what lead to nuclear verdicts. And again, we'll dive a lot more into nuclear verdicts in just a little bit. But again, when we're talking about international road check, there may be focuses, ABS and cargo securement, or wheel ends, whatever it might be. That doesn't mean you neglect everything else. Everything gets maintained the way it's supposed to be maintained to meet the thresholds. This is why it's so important for fleets of all sizes to be actively engaged in the maintenance preventatively of their assets. If you lose a load, it's not just a bad day for the broker and the shipper because they can't get the freight moved. It could be a catastrophic event that changes the lives of many, many people. And we do not want that. So again, the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance has chosen this year the ABS and the cargo securement, but you must keep everything up to snuff when it comes to maintenance. Now, this is the part that I get excited to talk to you about. The results of International Road Check. Now, each year, the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance compiles and releases comprehensive data on the results of International Road Check. This information provides valuable insights into the state of commercial vehicle safety, identifies common violations, and helps shape the future enforcement strategies. If you are not familiar with International Road Check, I want you to take a moment and think about this question I'm going to pose to you. Imagine you're going to the store and you're going to buy milk, and there's 5 gallons of milk available. But one of these gallons of milk is unsafe to drink. Now, you don't know which one it is. You just know that 1 in 5 is something you ought not to consume. Do you buy any of those milks? Or do you say, I don't think it's appropriate for 1 in 5 milks to be contaminated or unsafe to drink? Think about that question. Take a moment. 1 in 5, 20%. What do you think about that? Let's look to the data. So here they are. This is actual results from the International Road Check since 2017. Since 2017. And you can see the inspections that were done, the total inspections. You see the vehicles are knocked out of service and the percent that is knocked out of service. Now, there's a dip in the inspections in 2020. There was a thing that happened around 2020. I think many of you remember it, that global pandemic. It kind of slowed down some of the inspections. But what we see is stark. It's shocking. It's unacceptable. 20%. 20% of commercial vehicles inspected during International Road Check do not meet the threshold of quality maintenance that's required under the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration or the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance. If you look at these numbers and you go, wow, that's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, I'm concerned for you. But if you look at these numbers and go, wait a minute, are you serious? Are you seriously telling me that 1 in 5 commercial vehicles inspected every single year during International Road Check are unsafe to operate on the commercial highways? And you're getting a little bit frustrated by that? You should be. You should be. This is not just my family. It's not just your family. It's not just the motor carriers and the shippers and the brokers. It is the general public. It is the lawyers who are clamoring for opportunities to help victims or people involved in catastrophic accidents to get paid, reimbursed. 1 in 5. 1 in 5. We talk about it. What are the things that fail? Brakes, lights, tires, BLTs. The things that you absolutely must have in order to safely deliver freight on time and undamaged. I cannot emphasize enough how dramatically terrible it is to see 1 in 5 commercial vehicles are unsafe. Now, there are fleets that do a really great job in maintaining their vehicles, and it is all about preventative maintenance. Having the right tools, the right parts, the right technicians, the right training. These are the things that are non-negotiables in the supply chain. Everything comes on a truck. Everything comes on a truck. It might come on a boat in a big box that gets taken off by a big crane and put on a chassis. The chassis may take it to a warehouse. The warehouse may separate the freight apart, put it on another trailer, put it across the country. But all along this maintenance supply chain are vehicles that are unsafe. So the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance International Road Check, they know what's going to happen. This is not new. This is not surprising. This is not a bug in the system. This is a feature. This is the cost of very cheap goods being delivered just in time. People defer maintenance for a lot of reasons. Sometimes the freight market's too hot. You can't park a vehicle. You're not going to make any money. Sometimes the freight market's too slow. We don't want to fix it. We have no money. Sometimes it's just right. Let's pause and get some things done. That is not the right way to think about maintenance. That is not the right way to think about moving freight. You have to proactively schedule services and be militant on those things. The fact that the federal government can tell you once a year you must get a federal inspection with a qualified inspector who signs off on all of the components may not be enough for everybody. Sometimes you have to do more. An example of this is California. They have their BITs. These are quarterly inspections every 3 months for commercial vehicles. Again, what we're trying to teach you, what we're trying to emphasize for you, is that maintenance is something that affects all of us, not just what it costs for the trucking company to maintain their business, because it's hard to run a trucking company. Your biggest expenses as a trucking company tend to be fuel, labor, the assets, maintenance, tires, and insurance. Those are the things you spend your money on. And if you can defer one, like maintenance, you have results that look like this. This is not the supply chain that I want to see. It shouldn't be the supply chain that you want to see. We want to see a supply chain where everybody understands preventative maintenance saves money. Sometimes 2 to 5%, 2 to 5 times more with the unplanned maintenance versus the scheduled maintenance. You save money when you maintain vehicles correctly. 1 in 5. Like, look at these things. Look at this. Is this what you want? No, it can't be what you want. It's not what we want. As attorneys, we want people to get home safely. We don't want to see things like this. But let's continue on. There's more to discuss. Now, look, we've gone through so far, and we've talked about this industry. Everything moves on a truck. Sometimes it moves with a horse and buggy, but those days are gone. Now it is big machines with complex systems, complex sensors, and very, very, very big equipment. Maintaining these things is the way of all motor vehicle carriers. You need to be on top of it. You do not want to have these types of catastrophic events where tires fall off or brakes lock up, or you have any number of things that can happen, which again is not the goal for anybody. We need collaboration. Industry cooperation and collaboration is the way to solve these things. International Road Check emphasizes the importance of collaboration between the government, industry stakeholders, and law enforcement agencies. And I would say to the individual public as well. We want you to be passionate about safety. We want you to be excited about motor carriers that pass their inspections. There are so many drivers that I know that will bring up on different social media platforms clean inspections that they receive during this time period or any time period where these inspections occur. That is the type of goal we should have as an industry, highlighting our safety, highlighting the ability to go through an inspection process with a clean bill of health. Deferred maintenance, putting it off till later, is not sustainable. It's not sustainable for commercial vehicles. It's not sustainable for your personal health or your mental health. You cannot defer maintenance. And when you do, you have bad outcomes. By working together, we can pool our expertise, our resources, and knowledge to ensure the highest level of safety for all road users. When you have 1 in 5 vehicles fail, you're not doing a great job at maintaining a fleet across the country. You need to be better. We all need to be better. Now, let's just focus for a moment on the truck drivers. See, trucking is not an easy job. This is one of the most dangerous jobs in the United States, in the top 10 most dangerous jobs out there. And yet, it is the most common profession in over 40 states. And like I mentioned earlier, for high school educated men, it is the most common job in all 50 states. This is America. Everything comes on a truck, whether it's from a manufacturer or a distributor or a less than truckload carrier breaking bulk in Reno. This is about moving things so that you get the stuff that you need for your home. COVID taught us a lot of things. It was the great accelerator of so many trends, the buying of things digitally, the bringing things to your house, the fulfillment of all of your desires without having to talk to a human being. But we neglect our drivers. They can't find parking. They can't find bathrooms. They can't find safe places for inspections. And because of that, these outcomes begin to be apparent. I urge everybody who is watching this, whether it's live or other versions of this that might happen over time, do not accept the status quo. The status quo is not good enough because there are many, many people who want to make this better. If 1 in 5 is something you can accept, you and I aren't going to align. We need better numbers. So we talk about the truck driver. This business of moving freight is incredibly hard. We need to make it easier for our drivers, easier to get inspections, easier to get repairs, easier to find parts, easier to understand what's wrong with your machine. When you make it easier to do these activities, you incentivize people to do them proactively. If you wait for things to break down, you will fail because you have failed to plan. You must then plan to fail. Now, let's talk about nuclear verdicts. This is the part that I think many of you are going to be most interested in because it's always in the news. So let's talk about it. The American Transportation Research Institute recently released comprehensive research that confirms that large verdicts against trucking fleets are increasing dramatically, both in number and in size of awards. In the first 5 years of the data, there were 26 cases over $1 million. And in the last 5 years of the data, there were nearly 300. The number of verdicts over $10 million has nearly doubled in that time. So what happens? What is the process of when a catastrophic event happens and you start to talk with the lawyers? Let's play out a hypothetical. An accident occurs. Someone is killed. What happens? The first thing me as the attorney on the plaintiff side will do, they'll say, who's the motor carrier? I want to get copies of their insurance policy, their insurance limitations, and make sure the insurance company is going to cover the event. Then I ask for driver qualification files, and then I ask for vehicle maintenance records. These verdicts that we talk about, you see everywhere in the news, have to do with patterns of practices that motor carriers do. And when they don't do maintenance the way that they're required to do, they look at your citations, they look at your inspections, and they say, this is a pattern. This is how they treat it. They don't take safety seriously. And when you don't take safety seriously, the dollar signs start increasing. We cannot bring someone back from the dead. We can't do that. We know this. But what we can do is exchange money. And that's what nuclear verdicts are about. They are generally defined as a verdict over $10 million. Now, that isn't hard to get over that number when you have a fatality. You ask questions. How old was the person? Did they have any dependents, any children? Did they have any long-term physical disabilities? What kind of pain and suffering did they endure? And if someone doesn't die, if they actually live, it can be even more expensive. Future medical care, pain and suffering, all of these things are the stuff that produce the nightmares for safety and risk managers of motor carriers, shippers, brokers, and also everybody else that's around. We've seen cases that are changing the way we think about liability. Just last year, there was a case with C.H. Robinson where they had a driver they had hired to move a load for Costco. They were the broker, C.H. Robinson, and Costco was the shipper. The motor carrier inadvertently crossed the center line and collided with another vehicle, causing enormous damages. And the plaintiffs sued not just the motor carrier, but they sued the broker. They sued C.H. Robinson. And Robinson tried to argue that they were preempted, that they weren't allowed to be sued. And that went to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And the Ninth Circuit said, yeah, you can. You can certainly be held liable. We're not going to get you out of this thing. And then that went to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, we're not ready for this yet. And they kicked it back. So we see a pattern now where potential liability exists beyond the motor carrier. It exists in the world of the brokers. This is why brokers are becoming far more interested in verifying trucking companies or motor carriers and verifying safety and maintenance cultures, because that is how you know you can safely deliver the freight on time and undamaged. Nuclear verdicts are not going anywhere. You can try to do tort reform. We hear this talked about a lot. We'll make it so liability is lower for everybody. It ain't going to happen anytime soon. What can happen soon is better maintenance practices. So that kind of wraps up our discussion. We'll be answering questions in just a moment, but let's just recap what we learned. The Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance aims to prevent commercial motor vehicle crashes, injuries, and fatalities. I think we can all agree we would like less of those things. Yes, certainly. The three components of International Road Check are vehicle inspections, driver inspections, and this idea of education and public outreach. We want you to participate in this process. If you're a motor carrier, you get pulled over and you get an inspection and it's clean, you should be posting that on Twitter. That's the best marketing you're ever going to have, is a safely moving freight. That's amazing. We want people in this industry to be passionate about safety, not because it's the right thing to do. Of course it is. We want everybody to arrive home in the same condition they left. Now, we know there's a focus this year. ABS helps trucks stop. I think we can all agree we like when trucks stop. And cargo securement prevents freight from falling. When freight falls, not a good outcome. Not a good outcome. And finally, one in five commercial vehicles fail inspection. We know this. It continues to happen year after year after year after year. And something has to change. And that is up to you as the industry to say, is this enough? Are we happy with this outcome? Or do we want more? And I think the answer is always, we do want more, because safe equipment and safe drivers are what is necessary to avoid nuclear verdicts. Because when you have a nuclear verdict, I'm coming for you. I'm going to exhaust your insurance policies. I'm going to lien your assets, your equipment, your buildings, whatever. I will liquidate them and I will make them payable to my client. That's how this works. You don't want to be on the other side of this type of litigation. This is what we call bet the farm litigation, where if you lose, you're done. You're out of business. That idea you can just go bankrupt and make another company has to go. You need to maintain your vehicles. So, in conclusion, International Road Check was organized by the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance, plays a vital role in promoting the safety of commercial vehicles and their drivers. Through thorough inspections, driver examinations, and public outreach, the CVSA aims to prevent accidents, injuries, and fatalities associated with commercial vehicle operations. Let us all agree the status quo is not good enough. We can do more. You can do more. If you are a repair facility, or you're a repair technician, or you're in this space, this is how you add value. You can make it so that your clients do not have vehicles that are out of compliance. If you're a fleet manager, the time to get inspections is not after this thing is done. It should have been months ago. But now you know you can solve this. Work with your shops, work with your outsourced providers to make sure you are staying on top of what is federally required of you to do. Maintain your commercial vehicles. Thank you for your attention. I'm happy to address any questions you may have, and I'm so excited to be here in Diesel Laptops.
Thank you, Matthew. That's a great presentation. We're happy to have you here too. We have some questions in here. I will run you through a couple of them. We're a bit limited on time, but we do have some really interesting questions here. So in your opinion, what are future prospects or advancements in International Roads Check? What does the future look like for this program?
It should happen more often. We have Brake Safety Week. That happens towards the other half of the year. But honestly, in my opinion, if we continue to see this level of failure, it is unacceptable. And I do believe more inspections should be put in place. And worst case scenario, I don't think it's been proposed yet, but perhaps FMCSA mandating more than one inspection a year. I think it's due time. We ask the question, is the status quo enough? So my belief in the International Road Check is if we continue to see these terrible numbers, there will be a bigger push to have more inspections or more federally required inspections.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting that to do any type of check where people know that you're going to be checking, right? I mean, that's an opportunity to maybe switch out vehicles that are on the road or say, reduce your operations in that period of time. So I think whether it was additional checks throughout the year or maybe that this is a program that should be maybe not so intense, but year round, that they're doing some different stuff. Yeah, good point there. We have one here. Are there any legislative efforts to increase mandate inspections on on-highway vehicles? So to your point, are there any legislative efforts to get that type of increase going?
So this is the reality. Probably not right now. There's always talk within different alliances in safety that they want to have more inspections, but it costs the industry money. And also the FMCSA isn't really funded well enough to be able to do a lot more robust inspections. And as long as this fragmentation exists with thousands and hundreds of thousands or millions of small owner operators and small fleets, these incentives to have properly maintained equipment just aren't there. So we do want to see more. And I think as technology increases, specifically on things like automation, we will see more rigorous inspections, but not right now. It's an interesting question, but as far as I know, we're not looking at making any more mandated inspections within the FMCSA.
Okay. This is an interesting take too here. With international road checks, is there any data around other things that this turns up or that it prevents? For instance, the example here was like smuggling or human trafficking. Is there any data out there about maybe the unexpected fines when they're doing checks?
A thing I think would be useful for anyone watching is to actually go to the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance's website. They don't have a lot of things like human trafficking, and that's not really their wheelhouse. But what you do find is the types of violations that are most common. And it is, again, astonishing. The things that we need to have, the brakes, lights, tires, this is what is almost always knocking companies out of operation. So when you see the data and you look at the research that these companies have put together, it is surprising. The other place I would recommend people to look at is like the American Transportation Research Institute, ATRI. They do phenomenal reporting, mostly around the safety and operational costs of trucking companies, but they do have working groups that talk about human trafficking that continues to happen. But at the end of the day, more inspections is better. I fundamentally believe more inspections is better for everybody.
Absolutely. So we're almost out of time here. Any last words for the audience?
Yeah, this is a great thing to segue to. The future's coming. We know that automation is something that is talked about all of the time. When you see data like this, whether it's the driver qualifications or the asset inspections, it shows you that what we do today isn't working. And so as people push for advancements, those technologies will absolutely require significant addition to inspections because there's not going to be a human being driver. The thing I would leave everybody listening to this with today